Brought to you by Hug House Productions.
Will here with another podcast I think you're gonna love. Mother, She Wrote is a multi-genre podcast all about beloved, moving, and deeply influential game Earthbound, or Mother as it's called in Japan. Blending audio drama and nonfiction deep dive, Mother, She Wrote doesn't just look into the themes and craft of the game, it puts you right into the mood and feel of the game. Here's the trailer, and you can find the podcast in our show notes or at mothershewrote.earth.
It happened in the quiet town of Podunk, an ages-old family mystery.
What happened with Great-Grandpa? Why won't you talk about it?
Because there's nothing to say, Ninten.
Begets an unprecedented paranormal event.
Help, brother!
Poltergeists.
My lamp attacked me. It was hovering in the air. It unplugged itself and came at me.
Mind control.
Why is that crow smoking a cigarette?
Okay, we're playing inside today.
Zombies.
I could have gotten out of here on my own.
You were hiding in a coffin.
It was a good disguise.
Extraterrestrials.
You've seen them too? I've been observing them for days.
I beat up aliens with my baseball bat.
Children with psychokinetic powers.
I let that little light of mine shine, Mama, and it melted the darkness away.
And that's just the beginning.
Introducing Mother, She Wrote, a travelogue diary through the biggest cult phenomena in video game history, the Mother series, as it's called in Japan, and Earthbound, as it's called everywhere else.
Each episode, we recount the story through immersive audio drama as it's lived by the characters, unpacking the surreal adventures, tear-jerking moments, and what it all means.
If you're new to the series, we'll take you beyond the controller and into the story.
And if you're a longtime fan, relive these tales like never before and learn fascinating new facts about your favorite games.
Find Mother, She Wrote on your favorite podcast player and at mothershewrote.earth.
Welcome to How to Act Fereldan, your podcast field guide to all things Dragon Age. I'm one of your hosts, Wil Williams. My pronouns are they, them, and today, my Dragon Age, I think I would say like 49. I feel a little tired, a little seasoned, a little creaky, but overall like well-adjusted. I feel like a dragon that like understands taxes at this point.
First thought, best thought, do not explain.
Oh my god, you're so right. I do have in my notes, first thought, best thought, period, do not explain. My Dragon Age is 49. Sean, you go next.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Giancarlo. My pronouns, I guess they're he, him. Any of them are fine. And my Dragon Age, when I first read this bullet point a few hours ago, I felt 7. But now I'm going to shoot it up to 37, and that's that. I'm sorry about it.
I wish we could have an explanation of that, because I need to know what aged you 30 years in the last, 3 hours.
Believe it or not, it's like, it's positive aging.
I get you. 49, yeah. I get you.
Yeah.
Anne?
3. Sorry, wait. You said my name. I forgot. Just so you know, that's my Dragon Age. It's 3. I'm Anne Baird. My pronouns are they, them, and 3. 3 is my Dragon Age.
Incredible. This is
I forgot the plot. I forgot the plot already. Just
like BioWare.
Oh no.
We'll cover that later.
This is our podcast about all things Dragon Age as we gear up for the eventual release of Dragon Age 4, aka Dreadwolf.
Wait, there's wolves now?
Oh. The short answer is yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
just to give a little bit of background here, I think let's just do a quick summary of our experience with Dragon Age for each of us. So I have played all of the games. I played Inquisition first, and then I went back to Origins and 2, and then Inquisitions again. My favorite game is Inquisition of the 3, probably because I started with it. And I know too much about the lore and have read too much of the wiki. Anne, what about you?
My first game was Dragon Age 2. I played it on a trip to my grandmother's house. I picked it up as like something to entertain me while I was stuck at her house with no internet. And I bought Dragon Age 2 because I didn't think about the fact that Dragon Age 1 existed and it had just come out. So I played 2, and then I played like some of Dragon Age Origins. And then Inquisition came out and I played that. And then I was like, oh, dang, I probably should play Dragon Age Origins. So then I played that after I'd played Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition like 3 times each. Yeah. So great. Dragon Age 2 is my favorite game because it was my first one. I think that's how it works.
Yeah,
I think it's just your first Dragon Age is your favorite Dragon Age.
And Giancarlo, what does that mean about you?
Okay, well, hi. It's me, Giancarlo, the dragon baby. I have had some experience with Dragon Age, but I have by far the least because I've never finished a game. I got Inquisition when I got my PS4 like ages ago, but I never really got very far into it. I didn't have my PS4 very long. I sold it because I was like, why am I paying for online when I can make a PC? And then I just never ended up getting Dragon Age again. But it kind of lingered in the back of my mind. I had a friend who was like super into them, so I started Origins, and then when I joined up with these fools, I mean, we'll get into my playthrough in a second, but basically I've started Origins a number of times at this point, but now my true playthrough begins. And we'll see what my favorite is. I wonder if like experiencing it in chronological order will alter the like first being your favorite, maybe?
Yeah.
Because you feel the like datedness of the games a little bit more. It's kind of like with Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2 is by far my favorite.
Oh yeah, it's incredible.
But I played them in order, so it wasn't like I jumped backwards and whatever. Whereas with something like The Witcher, I played all of them, but 3 is by far my favorite, and it was the first I played. So I think that theory holds up. But we'll see how this goes for me. So yeah, this is functionally my first playthrough in earnest of the games.
Yeah, and we're going to be following along each episode with your playthrough, and I'm so excited to hear your reactions as you go.
Yay.
Shall we hop into Dragon Age news?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, we've got a few things here that could potentially lead to some spoilers, but we're going to be very considerate because
I'll throw my headphones across the room.
Well, don't do that. I'm assuming they're plugged into your computer.
All connected. Destruction of tech. That's what we get. That's what we get. We've got 2 pieces of pretty mid at best Dragon Age news. The first is kind of something, and then the second is nothing, but it's very funny. So, first is some clips of Dragon Age Dreadwolf were leaked by somebody who has an early like testing copy, and the articles say the combat looks like God of War. I don't know what this means.
Now, do we know if this is modern God of War or like old God of War?
I believe modern. I think the vibe here is that they're kind of stealing that style.
Then I am deeply excited.
Cool.
Oh, that's good to know, because I don't know anything about God of War. I did watch the leaked clip of the combat, and it didn't look very functionally different to me than Inquisition. But
you know what? I want to watch this leaked clip now because God of War, both of them, Ragnarok came out end of this last year, and like maybe the most emotionally intense experience I've had in a game. I loved it. I loved it so much.
Wow, that's
so.
wonderful.
I mean, I know that doesn't have anything to do with gameplay, but also the gameplay is very satisfying.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I love them.
Totally go watch that clip. Don't
I see it.
think thoughts about the anything though, other than the combat.
I don't know. Okay, it looks cool. I don't know that I would call that God of like that. My first thought wouldn't be, oh wow, that looks like God of War. It doesn't not look like God of War either. It just doesn't like. There's nothing about it that defines. I don't know. It could also look like the newer Assassin's Creed if you wanted to throw it in that direction, I guess.
Oh,
it
that
looks
makes
like
sense.
Which
It
is
looks like
a
a
less
gritty-
flattering comparison.
Yeah, it looks like a dark combat game in a medieval-ish universe.
Which
Basically,
honestly,
yeah.
Like, fine.
we will talk about this, I am sure, at some point, talking about the way that combat plays across the games. I do think that Dragon Age Origins has like the most satisfying. It's difficult at times for sure. Also, I'm very bad at games. I think that it asks you to do the most and think the most in Origins, which I think makes it more satisfying. When it comes to 2 and Inquisition, I do not think about the gameplay or the combat at all. So I don't know. I'm not terribly shocked that this looks like a typical action adventure combat-y game.
Now, I'm curious, what in your opinion like sets us apart Origins from say 2 and Inquisition and potentially this new version of combat that we see here?
For me, I think that in Origins, because the difficulty is at base scaled up a lot, there's a lot more management you have to do. So I pretty much never used the like combat planning mechanics where you like are going step by step and kind of like pausing like halfway to turn-based. I never used that shit in 2 and Inquisition. Especially Inquisition, I almost always play a mage and I just like hold down R2 and I'm set. I stay far away. I maybe throw in a triangle every now and then. That's it. Whereas Origins, I think it's more difficult. And then also there's like more waves and more opponents overall. There's like a lot more that you have to be considering in Origins that's all happening simultaneously. And do you think that that feels like a fair summation of how that game plays versus the others?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Origins felt more difficult when I played it, but it could have been because I was going back to play it from the other 2. So
yeah, and then there is also like how much of it is difficult and how much of it is just like an old shitty game.
True. That's true. Yeah, I mean, we also have to keep in mind that this is like a super alpha leak of the game. And it could look completely different. I don't think the art of the game is going to look very different, which that's fine. That looks pretty advanced. Better than the other games, for sure. But the UI, like I see the comments on this article are like it seems kind of cartoony and like it's a beta alpha. It's an alpha of the game. They haven't finished it. They're still working on it.
Right. Yeah, good.
It looks
good
like Dragon Age
sure.
Origins UI almost. Which
interesting.
Just when I was looking at it, it made me think of Origins, just because it is lower quality, more cartoony, less realistic looking. But I don't know really what people are expecting.
Yeah, but the aesthetic stuff, like you said, is always the last thing to like kind of get nailed in development. So
yeah,
it's like what we saw with what was it? I think the GTA 6 leaks a little while ago.
Oh yeah,
and people were like, "Oh my god, it looks so terrible!" And it's like, do you not even have the slightest understanding of how development works?
They don't.
Obviously, they don't.
As somebody who has written for both Kotaku and Polygon, no. No. Let's move on to this second piece of news, which I think is, again, way more nothing, but also way more fun.
It makes me so mad. I know what this is. Read it, Will. Tell me what it is. Read it out loud so I can be mad about it.
Okay, I'll pull this up and I will read the actual tweets. So on Twitter, there was a thread about useless Dragon Age facts, like things that don't impact the gameplay, don't really impact the story, but like are just silly things from behind the scenes from the devs. So this was started by Twitter user, it's a Dragon Age person. We'll link it. They said, haven't seen one yet for Dragon Age, so ... What's the most useless fact about Dragon Age that you know? Anne, you want me to read this tweet out loud?
No, you know what? I'll read it out loud because I'm mad about it.
For context, John, there's in Inquisition, you can ride on a horse.
I saw this tweet a while ago, and I love it. I love everything about it.
So this tweet, this is a quote tweet on this one asking about the useless facts from one of the creative directors behind Dragon Age, John Epler. And he says, when you sprint on a horse in Dragon Age Inquisition, it doesn't really do much because Frostbite couldn't stream in levels fast enough. So we just added speed lines and changed the camera so it felt faster. So what that means is you're going the same speed no matter what you're doing on a horse. You can't, they've added sprint for horses, but then they realized, oh, we can't do that. So they just slowed the speed and just made it the same.
I'm literally like crying actual tears at the thought that one of their artists had to make speed lines.
Why didn't they just not do sprint then? Just remove sprinting.
Now we need
do it.
We need someone to mod it now to put actual sprinting.
I want someone to mod it to add even more cartoony speed lines.
We need to release a mod called Real Sprinting Dragon Age Inquisition, but it still doesn't do anything.
This is a minor spoiler, but there's a quest in Dragon Age Inquisition where you have to race to go as fast as you can on your horse around a track.
Oh, God.
No, there's not a quest.
No, there's not.
There's several.
There's several.
No.
But so you could just walk it. Because it's not going to change anything.
It's not going to change anything. And with that, let's move on to our next segment. Giancarlo, let's talk about your playthrough so far on your actual go of Dragon Age Origins.
Okay. This time I went male dwarf, the like thief start. And you know what?
Yeah.
I'm really into it. More into it than I've been with the others. Like way more into it. I'm a big fan. My boy Oman, he's running around. I was like, oh, I don't like the way you're talking to my sister, bro. We're gonna settle that later. I'm a rogue, and so I'm just way more involved because I feel like it threw you into character stuff first, which especially when you're dealing with like dated systems and mechanics, getting me invested in the story is a good way to make sure I'm excited to click slowly.
Absolutely.
So that was great. I just made it to Ostagar, so I'm still at the very, very beginning.
Okay.
But it was really fun. I made it through the whole do we want to put like spoiler warnings for anyone who hasn't played, or like is it assumed?
I think we should assume that the babyest listener will be as baby as you.
Okay, great. So for all of you listening, if you don't want spoilers, make it to Ostagar. Come catch up with me. Okay,
yeah,
great.
Perfect.
So this guy's talking shit to my sister. We do the fight. And you know what? I'm embracing being a little bit of an asshole. I drugged the other guy. I was like, hey, I got to get out of here somehow. I drugged the other guy and I fought him. However, I'm like, what was the point of drugging him when I still had to fight everyone else anyways? So I was like, well, that was dumb, but whatever. It was great. After that, the escape from the prison sequence, just like I was like, oh yeah, this is an old game, because I was like, how the hell are you expected to make it through this? Like, it is nonstop combat. I can't use my healing stuff. I ended up using stealth. Thankfully, we were both rogues. Really chill, really cool. We scooted around. We killed some people, but I found this is where I'm like curious how the combat system is going to differ in the other games, because the main thing that like got me with this one that makes it slightly less I don't dread the system or anything, but I'm like, this could be better, is I normally, not always, but normally really hate turn-based combat. I prefer real time. But because you're managing a party, and especially like playing as a rogue where you want to position yourself behind people and they just kind of automatically pathfind to certain things, it's like you should have given us an option to go full turn-based so I can more strategically position, because sometimes it's a little cumbersome to be like, oh, what the fuck is this guy doing? Have I given him orders? Oh, he's just standing there. Great. But overall, I'm very invested. I really, 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 really did not want to leave my sister. I was curious what would have happened if I just refused, but she told me to go and this guy told me to go. And I was like, okay, well, this guy seems to be my buddy, but then he made another gross comment about my sister. And then I'm like, who's this noble guy? I don't know, man. I don't trust nobles. Okay. I don't like your reaction. So something I'm enjoying about this playthrough is because I am streaming it, you do things to try to be entertaining when you're streaming, as opposed to just sitting there silently staring at your screen. And so I tend to be really big into like codexes and stuff, but especially when they're like notes that you find in the world, like in The Last of Us and like stuff like that. With BioWare, like I loved Mass Effect. Mass Effect 2, I read them all. Mass Effect 1, I did not, because I was like, this is way too much like expo dump on me. You're explaining like worlds upon worlds. I'll read some of them, but that's about it. But so far, I've been reading them all on stream because I'm, doing a dumb voice and reading it.
Twitch.tv/Whimsip Productions.
That's right. And I'm really enjoying like that, the world building in them. They're interesting. I don't know, maybe I feel like fantasy sometimes is easier to make like a pretty codec entry for, but I'm enjoying it. And then you get to read one and you go into a conversation and you're like, haha, I know what that means. And oh wait, you're explaining it anyways? Okay, but I knew that.
Yeah.
I think they correctly understand their audience, some of it at least, that they are just going to never read the codex.
Yeah.
Like
there's a lot of them.
We'll just explain it we'll just explain it again. Don't worry.
The continuity in the Dragon Age codexes is so good. There are like recurring scholars who you read their work, and you also, there's like mistakes baked into their work that like reflects a lot of character building for this person who's literally only ever like writing a codex entry. There is a very cohesive story that is told through poems. There's another cohesive story that's told through songs. I really like the codex work in these games.
I'm always stunned at how well BioWare, at least in their old days, makes use of like the limited resources they have for like cinematics. Because the graphics are not good. We don't have a remaster for Dragon Age. We don't have anything. But I find like Duncan's face when he's looking down on you in the arena is surprisingly expressive. Yeah. And like it conveys the action, the fight sequences, like in the opening cinematics are like very legible to the viewer, and you understand what's going on, and it has like a really nice sense of scale despite being like 4 polygons. So I appreciate how they use that, especially, having played some of their other games and seeing how wrong it can potentially go.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a world of covert culinary criminal coalitions, Giancarlo, oui chef, reformed criminal and celebrity chef Butch Orson, prepare the brigade, oui chef, is dragged back into the dark realm of criminal kitchens. Behind. When old rivals threaten his life's work. Corner! Butch is brought back. Hot. No. For one last. Cook.
Open Pandora's oven.
Yes, Chef! John Wick meets Hell's Kitchen in Yes, Chef, a comedic actual play adventure of kooky culinary combat, refried revenge, and untold gastronomic horrors.
And there is just a very tiny, skinny man dripping in brown black water. And you see this man seems to have just come out of the bathroom. Roll for initiative.
God. John.
And then he comes.
I'm like, what? I'm like, this is a joke. Like, you're kidding. Like, ha. It's so funny. Let's keep playing Yes, Chef. No, he's serious. He's like, roll initiative. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean?
Yes, Chef is out now on the Dungeons and Drimbus podcast feed. Butchie, a genuine pleasure to see you.
Now on to our main conversation for today. We're just going to do some background on Dragon Age and BioWare with some little fun facts I found while doing research. I didn't expect to go down like a wormhole of research and be reading a whole ton of articles, and I don't know why, because I'm literally a journalist.
Yeah, you should have known this was going to happen.
This is the most Will thing I've ever heard.
You just admitted to reading the entire Dragon Age wiki. Like,
shit.
Why did you think this was? What did you think this wasn't going to happen?
Yeah, you got me there.
You got yourself.
So I think the best way to start this conversation off is as an introduction to Thedas. We got to talk about how Thedas was named. Giancarlo, do you know this story?
Not at all.
It's so stupid.
Why do I feel like it's just like initials of people?
that is better than what it is.
Yeah, it's almost that, but worse.
And do you want to take it? Do you want to take it?
The Dragon Age story.
You're so close.
So close. It's the Dragon Age setting.
That's
it. It's like working title, and then they left it.
Yeah.
You know what? It works. It works.
It's just so stupid.
It's so stupid. It does sound good. I kind of love that goofiness is baked in, but also, good lord. BioWare was founded way back in 95. For some reason, I thought it was like in the 2000s, but nope, 95. The first game they developed was Shattered Steel, which I have literally never heard of.
No, neither.
Nope.
It's a mech sim.
Okay.
Okay.
No
cool.
story, just like be in mech and I guess like smash things. I read the Wikipedia.
I do hate that our
Ideal.
natural reactions to hearing this was to just repeat what's on the document. We said mech sim. Okay.
Okay. That's true. That is verbatim what my notes say. Like, huh? What?
Okay, but that's an ideal kind of mech sim, though. Like, I don't care about a story. I just want to run around and be a cool robot person.
That's
Totally
so
fair.
true. That's so true. It is like a wild origin story for a company that would later go on to make like extremely detailed and robust RPGs that have like no story or anything. So they this came out around, this was what Wikipedia calls the 5th generation of gaming consoles. So this was back when it was just a PlayStation, a Sega Saturn, Nintendo 64, like ye olden days. And their first like real game was Baldur's Gate back in 2000. I have never played Baldur's Gate. Have both of you?
I have not. I'm really into Divinity Original Sin 2 right now, and that team. Well, that team is making Baldur's Gate 3, I believe.
Oh, sweet.
I play Baldur's Gate 3.
Cool.
I have the original Baldur's Gate. I don't think I ever actually played it, but I do own it.
It's D&D the video game, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they came out like hot and fresh with a big IP partnership. Though in 2000, like, I don't know if D&D was like
it was
coveted.
No. By
They
some.
could pretend they coveted it, but we all know Wizards did not covet that game.
Oh yeah. Baldur's Gate got great reviews. It is a franchise that I know is very, very beloved. I haven't touched it, but I do think that using the actual D&D mechanics for a video game is fascinating. I just think that is like such a clever way to bring tabletops to a video game, which is exactly what they were doing. Like, I think that it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really sweet. Like, I think it's very endearing.
It's really cool from what I've seen in Baldur's Gate 3, which is still like releasing beta content. Like, they're still adding stuff to the game. But from what I've played of it, from, you know, like early releases, it's really neat. Like, dice, they literally have dice, like D20s show up on the screen in Baldur's Gate 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh man, Disco Elysium.
Yeah. Oh my God. Don't get me started on Disco Elysium. But I love it because it's very much, as someone who is almost always DMing, but is also almost always down to play D&D in a way where, like, I don't fatigue as quickly as a regular person might. I always want to play TTRPGs, and it can it's so hard to schedule things. I hate scheduling so much.
Yes.
And this is the perfect game where, like, well, granted, I'm talking about Divinity, but like same idea. It's such a cool thing to, like, my partner and I will be like, oh, you want to play Divinity? Great. No one has to come up with a story. No one has to prep. You can just sit down and you're basically just playing D&D. But so much more chill. Will, I would totally recommend, like, checking one of those kinds of games out. It's so much fun.
I think that you are the first person to ever sell me on this series. People have tried and they have not done well, but yeah, that sounds great. BioWare's next big release was Baby Girl Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Released in 2007, and it was their first like big release that was not tied to a different IP. So at the time they were doing Baldur's Gate, they were doing KOTOR, SWO,
Star Wars.
The Star Wars guys. The Star Wars games that exist. I know people love them, but Mass Effect was their first dive into their own original IP. So for those who haven't played and don't know, Mass Effect, first off, fucking rules. If you're here because you like Dragon Age, maybe you will like Mass Effect, maybe you won't. It is a sci-fi story. It deals with, I would say, like quite a lot of the same themes as Dragon Age. Has a big party of NPCs who you grow to love. And is very sweeping, and also
and maybe kill through your own mistakes.
Yeah, you kill them forever through your own mistakes, and you don't cry, and you're normal. And and notably, Mass Effect is queer as shit. Like, there is a character, and like, granted, we could talk about how this character's written, because some of it's real weird. But one of the main characters and main love interests is essentially a femme, agender, bisexual. And that rules. We really didn't have like any queer representation in a real way in 2007, let alone in fucking video games.
Yeah.
This was a huge landmark and totally paved the way for when BioWare released Dragon Age Origins in 2009. This was 2 years after their acquisition by EA. This is when BioWare, to my memory, started being discussed as like girly.
Gurgly?
Girly, like femme, which is so no.
Okay. I can see where they get that, because Dragon Age and Mass Effect can technically be played as just romance simulators, but also there's some fighting and space and fantasy stuff.
And like pretty moving and intense like sequences. Yeah.
Yeah, I play them as a romance simulator. This is
certainly.
for me to kiss my sweet favorite characters on the face.
Yes.
But that's it.
Back to Dragon Age.
Yeah.
Released November 3rd, 2009, little baby. The head writer for Dragon Age, which will be consistent for most of the series, is David Gator. And importantly, David Gator himself is an out gay man. So that does, I think, really inform a lot of the writing in a way that feels very nice to me. Now, all that being said, I have to read you both. First, I'm going to read you a snippet from the oral history of Dragon Age Origins. This is by thegamer.com. This was written by Cian Mayer. But I got to read you this snippet, and then I got to read you a paragraph from David Gator's Wikipedia. So this is Daniel Erickson, a writer on Dragon Age Origins, who says, "One did not simply walk into BioWare as a writer. BioWare was at the top of its game. This was before the outside investors came in, and long before EA would come do the EA thing to them." Okay, so we've got that statement. Now I need to read to you the first paragraph in the career section for David Gator on Wikipedia. Gator began his professional life in the service industry, eventually managing a small hotel, while game designing was a side hobby to him. In 1999, a friend who worked as an artist at a local game studio named BioWare, at that point only having recently achieved success with the release of Baldur's Gate, suggested to the studio founders that Gator be given a newly available position in the design department. Gator got the job and, as his first assignment, was handed the task of writing for Baldur's Gate 2, Shadows of Alm.
That's just,
One does not simply walk into BioWare and become a writer.
I think they do.
They do. And then I think that they spearhead all of the Dragon Age games until this next upcoming one.
Wait, no, but he worked on Neverwinter Nights. He worked on Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic. Dragon Age Origins. He wrote like half of the novels. He wrote like 3 of the most important characters to the series in Dragon Age 2. Like, come on.
He wrote Dorian in Inquisition. Like, one does not simply walk into BioWare and get a writing job. Good Lord.
He moonwalked in. That's what he meant.
Right, of course. We did not see his impeccable dance skills in his audition, his job interview. It also doesn't even sound like he really had to do a job interview. I bet he did, but like, oh my God.
Well, you work in the service industry and you manage a hotel. We'll pay you $2 more an hour. Cool, perfect, awesome. Love it. You want to write a video game? Yeah, okay. I'll do it.
You
real
won't
cheap.
have to talk to a single customer. So, by the time the director for Origins was brought in, he was not brought in to start working on Origins until 2006, which was 3 years before release. Dragon Age was just like percolating in the background. And it, like they kept saying like, we need to make the game, and then not making it. By the time the director was brought onto the project, David Gator had written about, in his words, 1.2 million words for the game.
Christ.
I can't fathom that. I don't even think he was being hyperbolic. Like, he had to be, but it didn't come across this way. What the fuck? How many words go into a video game?
I mean, I could see it. Like, you got to think you've got like 15 origins you're writing for this game.
And however many endings, probably.
Plot,
yeah.
Then all the endings, all the different outcomes for all of it. I wrote here's some deep Anne lore.
Yes.
I don't think you even know this, Will.
Yes.
In college, I took a coding class, and it was like C++, like real boring shit. It wasn't anything I could ever use in life. But I decided as my final project for it, where everyone's like, I'm going to make a thing that lets you enter a report card and blah, blah, blah. And everyone's doing boring shit. And I'm like, I'm going to make a choose your own adventure game.
Of course you did.
Because of course I did. I don't like writing. And I started doing this and I was like, oh God, what have I done? But my professor really likes the idea. So I have to do it now. So it's like a pirate ship adventure game because of course I did.
Of course.
And there was so much freaking writing. She's like, you have to make your code as small as possible. And I'm like, I physically cannot because I have to write all these words. So I could see, just because I had to have, if you have 3 options for every situation, then you have to have 3 options that branch from that and then 3 from that. And it ends up being, it just spirals. So I can totally see how 1.2 million words just happened accidentally.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And are we the same? Because I did the same thing.
Oh,
you did
my
the same
God.
thing? Holy shit. Fucking amazing.
Fun fact, I still have like at least some of the code. I don't know if it's the final one, but like on one of my like cloud drives, I still have the original dungeonsandrimbus.cpp.
Wow.
Amazing.
We're getting so much lore.
There's so much lore behind everything here. I think I probably still have mine only because like 3 years later, my professor was like, can you actually present this project for like some competition thing? And I got an award for my stupid
That's awesome.
pirate choose your own adventure game.
Fuck yeah.
I don't know. Like I was like, okay, sure, I'll come talk about this. And yeah, that I could see how they did 1.2 million words.
Steam early access release when?
In Dragon Age, in Origins, you are introduced to the concept that there are a few countries. You are playing in Fereldan, which is like, let's be real, it's fantasy England, Scotland, Ireland. It's fantasy the UK. There is also Orlais, which is straight up fantasy France. And I would say like, once you get to Inquisition, kind of fantasy Venice. And then there is Ravane, I think is the other one that's like touched on largely in Origins, which is...
Antiva is touched on in Origins too.
Antiva.
Because,
yes, I'm thinking of
that's
Antiva.
Where Zevran is from.
Yes, I get Antiva and Ravane mixed up because they're treated the exact same by BioWare.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Antiva has sort of like a Mediterranean feel to it. So there are some things that I think we should talk about in regards to how we like our fantasy settings here, because I think that that's going to paint how we react to each of these games as we look back, and Giancarlo as you play. Yeah. So there are a few things I think we should talk about in regards to Thedas in Origins and also what we like in our fantasy. So let's talk first about aesthetics. Now, we did record an episode long ago, and I had a sticking point, and I will stick to it here. I think that Origins is ass ugly. I think
it's brown.
It's so brown. I personally, I am not a gritty fantasy person at all. I can fuck with fantasy if it has some sort of like, it's like some sort of technology factor to it. I think that the darkest fantasy that I like is like the Dark Crystal series, where there's like artificer shit going on there. Like I could find a robot even if he's made out of rocks. For fantasy, like high fantasy, I like fairy tale. Like give me an Ella Enchanted. So Origins aesthetically for me, hard pass. Got through it. Won't partake unmodded again. And what about you? How do you like your fantasy?
I typically go for like super high fantasy. I want all the magic. I like outside of the fantasy realm, I love a lot of like historical fiction stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I like stuff that really goes into the historical aspect. But history wasn't brown, so Origins is a hard pass for me. Medieval settings were super colorful.
Yes.
They weren't boring. So there's just, it could have been a limitation of the time and what they had as far as technology went. But I feel like Baldur's Gate and Mass Effect were not boring ass brown.
Oh, God, no. Mass Effect is like vivid. It's very colorful. A lot of like, I think of Mass Effect in as much as like bright blues, bright whites, chrome, very like refreshing color palette.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Origins is like drinking mud. Giancarlo, what about you? How do you like your fantasy aesthetics?
I do really like a dark fantasy.
Hell
but, if we're talking like aesthetically, dark fantasy is totally fine, but you need to have moments of beauty. Like I really do like The Witcher, and I think like the Witcher games represented that world pretty well. So like if you start in like White Orchard, it's just ugly ass swamp, right? But then you get to the cities where it's a little more vibrant, and especially if you get to like the DLC, you go to Tucson, it is so colorful, it is so vibrant, and like the games need to be able to balance that. Granted, I have not seen everything Origins has to offer, but from what I remember of the limited bits I've seen, it is a lot of barren grays and browns. Maybe part of that is like technological limitations where like, hey, if we put a tree on this hill, your computer's going to explode. That's totally possible. In that case, they probably should have lightened it up. I will say, again, because it's all I got to play last night.
Yeah.
But I think Orzammar is metal as fuck.
Orzammar rules. I'll give them Orzammar.
Yeah. I love being inside a mountain. I love the whole thing of like being connected to the rock to the point where like you literally cannot leave. I love the rivers of lava. Like all of that's really cool. And I think that's a cool way to do like dark fantasy, because like the lava, even though you don't see it much in there, like having stuff like that running out to brighten it up and to give it like a dark beauty is important. And it sounds like we won't be seeing much of that in this game.
Well, you'll see plenty of Orzammar eventually, so you'll be back there at least. I think that there's some forests in Origins that look pretty nice. Once we get to Inquisition, I have such a crush on so many locations in Inquisition. There's really beautiful moments there.
I do remember even just the opening being like very lush and pretty.
Yes, lush is a great way to explain it. Let's talk about our general feelings on how politics are handled in fantasy, because Dragon Age is actually, especially Origins, an incredibly political game. I don't want to dive into like discussions of if things are handled in a problematic way here, the ethics of things here, but just like generally what we like to see in our fantasy. So for me, I think, and I've talked about this a bit, especially in regards to writing Valence, which is our fiction podcast, which Giancarlo is in, which will be finished by the time this comes out.
And where can we find that?
Everywhere.
It's good. I think it's pretty good. I really like genre writing as a way to illuminate current / pervasive societal struggles. I don't really have the escapism gene in me. It's just, I have nothing against it at all. I kind of like wish I had the escapism gene. It just isn't there for me. So for me, I really love the politics and the discussions and the issues raised in genre fiction, as long as they aren't getting like too mucked in their own canon. Like if it serves the overall point of the narrative and what they're trying to say, I really like it. When it starts getting in the weeds too much and a little too obsessed with its own internal world building, it gets at me. And I could be wrong. Are you the opposite?
Yeah, I think I stole the escapism gene. I'm
so happy for you.
I want no realism in my game. I'm here to escape real life. I get enough of real life every day. So I'm here to just mess around with my magic and fight a bear and then go hang out with my cool friends at the bar in fantasy universe and then be done with it. And I don't get that in Dragon Age for sure. But it is my favorite game series. Somehow, I can get past it.
For the kisses.
For the kisses. It's
for the kisses.
It's all for my love interests.
And Giancarlo, what about you?
I would say I'm maybe somewhere in between you two, but definitely leaning towards Anne. Cool. Real life is a lot sometimes. And so I like to be able to not think about it. I really love to see the inspirations in it, but if it starts pulling me out a little too much where it's like, hey, this is very clearly an analogy for this like specific event in this specific time that you are probably like dealing with in your day to day. I find it like immersion breaking where I'm like, cool. Like there are a lot of like universal issues that I think just being a human, you can be like, this is a totally separate world and I'm in it with a blank mind and wow, it's really awful the way they treat these goblins or whatever, right? And I think that's where I like it, where it's open-ended enough that you tangle with it on a vague like human perspective and not necessarily in a like what's on my Twitter feed right now type of thing. This game definitely is very, very, very political, very heavy-handed.
Oh, and you've had one of the most political origins too.
Exactly.
Wow,
and so it was like, it was depressing. I think I do have enough of the escapism gene that I was able to just enjoy, in the dark way, the experience where I was like, cool, I'm angry and this sucks. But I could also see like, if that's something that affects you deeply, like you might not want to play that start. I don't know if you want to play this game, depending on where it goes, because it's very intense. It's very present. It's very dark, but so far I'm enjoying it because it has me invested in the characters, it has me invested in the world, and it appeals to that base sort of, I don't know, like human instinct of like empathy, well, hopefully, of like caring for others. And it's like, here's this being who's going through this thing. Wow, isn't that terrible? What can we do about that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased. I love this series. I'm here doing this. But I will say, to me, I feel like there is always, at the core of Dragon Age, and arguably at the core of what BioWare always does, that is deeply humanistic and deeply empathetic. And I think that it is trying to open conversations. I don't think that it's very good at that a lot of the time, but I think that it's always trying. How do we feel about our fiction revolving around discussions of like oppression? So I know, for instance, something that is talked about a lot when it comes to queer representation in media is whether we do or do not want to see like fantasy homophobia, whether we want to see this world where homophobia has been like eradicated, is not part of the discussion, is not part of the plot, is not part of the characters, or if we want to see like, good depictions of somebody moving through those struggles. I think this can kind of touch on what we just talked about, but I think it's a little bit different. I generally like it, but I don't like when it becomes the entire story or the entire point of like a character or the narrative is trying to say. Like I need a little bit more at this point.
Is that just in terms of like your example was like homophobia and stuff, or is it for every kind of thing like that?
I think every kind of thing.
Because I can tell you, because I know that most of the characters in this game do have that as their plot, is some kind of analogy for real world prejudice.
Yeah,
most of the characters.
That's totally true. I think I didn't really think about it that way until you said that.
Like, I mean, I don't want to give spoilers. I'm trying to think of somebody from Origins, but like we get Fenris.
Yes,
we get Dorian.
I
mean, just like all the characters. I think the way Solus just is.
I think what works for me with these characters is that because these games are fairly long, and there's like a lot of time you spend with these characters, and they interact with each other while you're walking around, it's rare that you won't get a character's take on every single issue in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get the character's take on mages versus Templars. You'll get the character's take on the elves and how they're treated, and you'll get the character's takes on, you know, a lot of the other political discussions happening. But you'll also get like really goofy dialogue, like this person, you know, like a character who seems very gruff loves reading trashy romances. You'll get that one person hates the cold. You'll get that another person it just doesn't like being in cities, things like this. Like there's a lot of bulk that is necessitated by a long game that is dialogue heavy and character heavy that I think fills in those blanks for me in a way that feels very satisfying. So their core stories, like their overarching companion quest sort of stories, totally do revolve around like a reflection of a real life oppression almost always.
I can't believe I forgot about Anders in my examples. Jesus Christ.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So, all that being said, how do y'all feel about that in your genre media, namely your fantasy? Do you like seeing a world where these oppressions are largely eradicated and we're focusing on conflict through a different vein or persuasion? Or do you like seeing these things that kind of tackle the way that oppression plays out in a world that is not quite our own?
I think I have two differing, like, I feel two different ways about it. If in a tabletop game where I'm playing with other people live, I don't want any of that stuff because I don't trust other people.
Oh, yeah.
So like when I start a tabletop campaign with people, I'm like, listen, I don't want homophobia, even fantasy. I don't want fantasy racism. I don't care. My character will never be prejudiced against any other fantasy group. I'm not going to do that. And I don't want it to be in my game. If your character comes up to mine who's a halfling and starts, you know, criticizing me because I'm short in anything other than a joking way, we're not going to be doing this. And now that's just being short. Like, I mock Will for being short all the time. So that's a bad example.
In fairness, I do deserve it.
But in a written game like Dragon Age, where I guess I can kind of choose the level of involvement I'm going to have with that. Like if I know this character is going to have a problem with mages all the time, and that's always going to come up if I have this companion with me, I'm just not going to bring them along with me when I go to talk to mages. Because I just don't want them to constantly be talking about that, and I don't want to hear it. I know they don't like them. I get it. It's fine. I just don't want to hear it all the time. Yeah. Will it affect my relationship with this character if I bring them along and I do things that are mage positive because I play a mage? Yes. Is that maybe why I don't bring them? Yeah.
That's on them.
That's on them, though. Listen, I just don't want to hear it. If I choose to only take them on pro Templar quests because it'll make them be my friend more, that's on them. That's not my fault. But yeah, I think in this in a setting where it's like a written out game, I can kind of avoid it almost by choosing, especially in a choose your own path type of thing. As much as you can with how the story is written. Yeah. So I think that's where, like, I don't want it with other real life people live, but in something where I can maybe step away if it gets too much, and come back to it when I feel better about it. I'm not okay with it, but I can accept it and deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, it's a hard question, and like it's the kind of thing that's just going to have a different answer for everyone, because particularly when it comes to something like fantasy oppression, when there's real life oppression and maybe you're sick of dealing with that shit and you don't want to see it in any way, shape, or form in any of your media, like I think that is a valid response and people should be allowed to step away. I do, not to cross into that territory, but like I do think it is ridiculous sometimes when we're like, this problematic or whatever, like storyline being present in a piece of media is suddenly reflective of the values of the people who created it. It's like, no, I think conflict is important.
Yeah, totally.
And so the thing for me, I really love a good video game. Sometimes it's hard for me to get stuck into one, but when I find one, particularly a story-rich one, like it is one of my favorite experiences to have. And I think it's because it is the closest I come as a consumer to scratching the itch of the thing I do all day, every day, and can't stop doing, which is being a performer, right? Because you get to live through that experience. It's a little easier, right? But you get to live through it. And I personally, as a performer, and then depending on my mood, right? Like it depends on what day and what you're playing, even in games, like I love like dark, like, and deep emotional experiences. I want to be moved. I do not cry easily. One movie has only ever made me cry, and it's Toy Story 4, and that's probably largely because of like deep childhood stuff. But beyond that, like I go to the movies or I watch TV and I want to cry and like I feel all the feelings, but like it doesn't happen. And then like in games, it's like you get to live through it, and there's something that is deeply cathartic. Like even if it doesn't feel good, like there's something deeply cathartic about going through it in a game, which to me is like a safe setting. It's a different world, particularly with fantasy, where it's like, yes, you might be dealing with this analogy for a really heavy real life thing, but it can kind of be abstracted enough where it's a little safer to engage with it, I guess, and to really like live through it. So I like it so long as it's done tastefully, or at least can be interpreted tastefully. Of course, like if you want to pick apart and like really just tear into something, you can frame it probably in any way you want, depending on your experience and your point of view and all of that. But I find it to, again, when it's done well, to be a very deeply cathartic thing. And so for me, it is a safe space to engage with them when it's done tastefully and often through a few layers of abstraction. I find it to be very cathartic. So I'm okay with it. It is very intense in this game and very sad.
You said that only one movie has made you cry. Have any video games made you cry?
Not like actually cry, but like it's gotten really close. Actually, maybe like tears streaming down my face, but not quite crying. God of War Ragnarok.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. It hit just like all the right kinds of storylines at the same time, where I was like, okay, this is a lot.
I love that for you. Okay. I think with that, let's touch on one of our segments that we will have down the line. I guess next episode. Fanfic challenge, in which we task Anne with finding a very specific Dragon Age fanfic and tell us all about it and link it in the show notes. This is our first recording. We don't have a challenge yet, so I think we should come up with one on the spot.
Okay, I'm so ready. Let's go. For context of what I have been reading recently, I have exhausted all of the ones for a specific pairing in the Dragon Age series that I always read, because that's what I default go to. And now I am reading BBC Merlin fanfiction, so that's where we're at right now.
Oh, shit.
They took it off Netflix, so now I have to read fanfiction.
Is that any good?
It's fine.
Okay.
It's not good, but it scratches it scratches the high fantasy, historical fantasy itch that I have when I don't feel like playing Dragon Age again.
Hell yeah.
Or rewatching Outlander for the 5th time.
I think that we should task Anne with finding fanfic about a character who you have encountered, Giancarlo. And I think it needs to be smut.
Uh-oh. Oh, Jesus Christ.
You don't have to read it.
I'm gonna read it.
Now, are we going to have the dramatic reading on the show? The dramatized reading?
No, we won't be doing that.
I don't think that we want to put any fanfic writers on blast here. I don't think we want to goof on them. But I do just want to know that these things exist, because they do. Do you have any characters in mind?
Barat.
There we go.
So Barat is the dwarven crime lord that you work for at the beginning, who is trying to get your sister to whore herself out to a noble.
Amazing. And Anne, you better dig. You better dig. You better not just if AO3 gives you nothing. Ooh, you better go to some scarier sites.
So scary. I'm gonna dig like a fucking dwarf and figure this shit out. I'm gonna find something so good.
Mine the mountain of 4chan.
Okay. All right. At least I've Googled this character. He at least is mentioned in Dragon Age 2, so I'm sure there is something, because he comes up in 2 games.
Really? Because I killed his ass.
We'll get there. Dragon Age 2 is like phenomenally horny.
Love
it's
that.
real horny.
It's great. And now, I think probably the most important part of our show is a segment that I like to call What's That Dragon Age? I am going to share an image of a dragon. The other two have not seen it. We will share this in our show notes. We'll share it on our website. We'll share it on our Tumblr. This is, again, if I had a bullet point here, it would be first thought, best thought, no explanations. I'm about to drop the link.
Can I say my first thought before we click this link? Because I do see the link. It is on easydrawingguides.com, which I'm so ready for this.
Dragonhead step-by-step drawing tutorial step 10.png.
Let's do this.
All right. Oh,
okay. All right.
Can I give a double answer?
Yes.
1642.
Yep, you're so right every time. Anne?
I was gonna say 49. This guy looks like he's like middle-aged.
He looks a little divorced.
He looks a little divorced, like he's going through a midlife crisis here. So
he looks like he's at that stage of the divorce where he's posting videos on Instagram of him just like crushing it at the gym.
Oh no, you're so right. He does. He looks like he's a little dehydrated, so he looks more buff.
Yeah. His little mane was graying, but he's dyed it like pink, and he's going through it. That second like rostral scale on his nose, that was added. That's a body mod.
It's a piercing.
The ones on his chin too. Those got to be piercings, right?
That's actually a result of the steroids.
Oh, okay. Oh,
that's trend draw, but for dragons.
He's been watching too much Liver King. Like, we really gotta talk him down from this alpha bro mentality. Do you know you're still in there, buddy?
Do you think this dragon's had like his horns like carved or like shaved so that they're pointed like that, or like that can't be natural? That one looks like it's got like a weird curve in it, like it's been.
It is like you know what it looks like?
Oh no!
It looks like penne.
It does look like penne.
Will, at some point you must find us the rigatoni dragon.
That's our challenge for you. It's find us the rigatoni dragon.
I will supply.
Oh God!
And you can find an image of this dragon, so you can see its dragon age, On our website, you can find us at hughouse.productions. You can find us on at Act Fereldan on Tumblr. Are there any other socials that we are running for this? We're not, right?
It's got a Twitter. I don't.
Does anything have a Twitter
I follow
anymore?
it.
Yeah, Twitter still exists, dude. Come on, I post there every other week for Valence. Like,
Oh, okay.
it exists.
Okay.
It's
I just don't
decaying,
use
but it's
it.
still there.
It's there.
It's like when people on the freeway slow down to watch the accident, but the traffic jam is taking much longer than anyone anticipated.
Yeah, the cars are still moving, technically. And also, importantly, if you want to watch Giancarlo play Dragon Age, which we will be talking about here week by week as he keeps on playing, you can find him at twitch.tv/Whimsic Productions. And if you follow, you'll get alerts. So you should do that.
Yep. Yeah.
And until next time, age that dragon. This is not in the notes.
No!
God.
No.
Sorry, no, I just. No! Oh, God. Don't worry, this fanfiction challenge is easy.
Oh, no. That's our outro.
That's it.
We got